All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Beth Ann Gerstein, and I'm the Executive Director of AMOCA, and I would like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. A few logistics before we get started. If everyone could remain muted for the first portion of the session, we'll do some staff introductions before handing it off to the 2021 cohort of artists in residence. So for those of you who have not read the webpage yet, the Artist in Residence program at AMOCA was established in 2012, and it's one of the few long-term residency opportunities for ceramic artists on the West Coast. Thanks to two remarkable grants from the Wingate Foundation, the program is growing from its humble beginnings into a residency program that aspires to be competitive with the best ceramic residency programs in the country. Doesn't hurt that the museum is located an hour from the desert, mountains, and beaches of Southern California, and 40 minutes east of Los Angeles on a good day. The application deadline for 2022 residency cohort is January 31st of this month. In the interest of equity, a number of donors have come together and provided funding to remove the application fee for this year. So starting in 2021, donors made it possible for the program to support up to 2 fully funded concurrent residencies for ceramic artists. Each residency is intended to last 10 to 12 months. And I'm excited to share that thanks to increased support this year, a 3rd concurrent residency opportunity is now available, and it's going to be allocated for artists living and working in Southern California. This residency opportunity will not include housing or a housing stipend, and is meant to be shorter in duration. We're thinking 2 to 4 months. Every residency includes a semi-private studio, a material stipend, a firing stipend. Oh, we're getting a little feedback there. It includes the semi-private studio, a material stipend, a firing stipend, and $100 per week living stipend for the length of your residency. Residents receive AMOCA membership benefits for the duration of your residency, and we hope you'll take advantage of behind-the-scenes access to museum facilities and collections afforded by your special relationship with museum staff. In the past, residents have sought out teaching and workshop opportunities, both within the studio and when appropriate at local colleges. Although, as you can imagine, these are, of course, impacted by COVID-related restrictions beyond our control. So before I hand it over to Nathan Stanfield, AMOCA's studio manager, I want to say a heartfelt thanks to Julianne and David Armstrong, our founders, Brian and Joy Van Sel at Laguna Clay, and the Wingate Foundation. It's through their support and vision that the museum is able to provide these residencies for ceramic artists. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nathan.
Thank you, Beth. Hi, everyone. I'm Nathan, and I'll be your point of contact for the residency program and all things your activities as a resident artist. Our studio, which is just over a decade old and spans 12,000 square feet, has facilities and amenities comparable to many university programs. We have slab rolls, extruders, clay mixer, pug mill. We have cone 10 premixed glazes and a full library of dry materials. As far as kilns go, 6 electric scut kilns, varying in size, 3 gas kilns, also varying in size, salt and soda kiln, sandblaster, tile saw, spray booths, on-site woodworkers for custom wood sort of kitchen, classroom, loading docks. It's quite an impressive studio. We expect from you is a minimum hours per week of active studio time, regular participation in monthly events. You bring unique perspectives and experiences to AMOCA engagement with students, members, and visitors, an introduction to yourself and your artwork to the community in the form of an artist talk or visual presentation, and then a full summary, a visual tour summarizing your work during your residency. It is now my pleasure to introduce the 2021 cohort of artisans who I'm very grateful are joining us today: Nalia Arbalez, Colby Charpentier, and Kirsten Wilders. Natalia, perhaps maybe you could start us off by sharing your residency dates and telling us a bit about your experience here.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I came over from the East Coast to Amoka, and what I wanted to do and propose was what was important to me is having access to the permanent collection and other collections as well. And through relationships in Amoka, I was able to visit other collections from people within the area of community, like a pre-Columbian collection that I got to interact with, touch with, touch actual pieces. And Beth Ann as well gave me a tour of all of the storage and permanent collection at Amoka and Dave Armstrong's collection. So that was the research component of my work that I did while at Amoka, and as well as I made a larger body of work that I didn't have access to in my regular studio. So I was really able to change size and scale while at Amoka. So it was a really great experience. Anything else that I missed? Oh, one thing that Nathan forgot to mention is the forklift. That was really helpful in helping me get everything into the kiln. So just being able to navigate and problem solve that was really important.
Great, thank you. Kirsten, do you want to go next?
Sure, yeah. Thanks so much. And thanks y'all for being here today. Thanks Nathan and Beth Ann, of course. So I have been here for about 6 months now. I came just last summer, and I'll be here until the end of June this year. So I think one thing that is super great about this residency, and I, unlike Natalia, I didn't come with having sort of like a very specific focus of wanting to use the archives or the collection at Amoka, although it is for sure a huge benefit to being here. I just wanted to, really hit the ground running and build my body of work as a younger artist, closer to being out of grad school. I graduated in 2020. And I think one of the great things is the facilities, obviously, which Nathan touched on, but also access to techs. So we have like a really great technician here that you can always bounce ideas off of and whatnot, is really helpful. He works at Laguna Clay. His name's Tim. So he's just like a great wealth of knowledge, as well as Nathan too. And another thing that was really important to me, that because I work in a lot of weird mixed media, and I'm sort of, I branch out into a lot of different materials, that sort of mode of working would be supported wherever I went. And so Beth Ann and Nathan have both been super supportive of that, and facilitating contacts in the area in LA, since I'm also from the East Coast. So I don't have any contacts here, or I didn't before I came here, I should say. And so that has been really great. And so we've initiated sort of, I guess, like not really a dual residency, but sort of a partnership with the Museum of Neon Art that's in Glendale, that I'm working with them to get access to their studio, so I can sort of continue building my ceramic work, but also sort of continue in the mixed media that is really an integral part of my body of work as well. And so I think those are some really positive things about the residency here. So I'll hand it off to Colby now.
Thanks, Kirsten. So let's see. So I showed up in September or so, and came in with a very sort of open plan as far as what materials to work with and what to work on, and sort of found like a nice community situation. So the rest of the studio is divided up into private studios, which I guess is something sort of pandemic related, that the shift to that happened. But the result is that we end up seeing people that are in pretty much every day. And so you end up with this sort of larger cohort. And between that and then the people that walk through the space, there'll be a lot of people that'll take tours with Beth or Pam or Paul. And that's been sort of a nice moment. It's also, I think getting into a lot of the soda firing has been a nice situation too. I mean, I've been away for maybe 2 or 3 years. And that's become an opportunity for making sushi and barbecuing and doing all the fun stuff. But yeah, all in all, still trying to figure out what's going on in the work. But it feels like there's this great team of people where whenever you want something, it can just sort of happen. And I know briefly someone had mentioned woodworkers as part of like the staff amenities. And those are actually workers for the museum that you can walk over. I needed some extruder plates the other day, literally walked in, said, hey, I need this dimensions, and walked out 5 minutes later. Yeah, so there's a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of support to make things happen.
Yeah, I would add on that. So at the end of my residency, I had a solo exhibit in Miami, and because of the shift in scale for me of having to make larger crates, I was helped, kind of problem solving that I hadn't really done on my own before. So that was really helpful. And on top of what Colby said, I'm not an atmospheric firer or interested in that, but every time there was a firing, there was either pizza being made or tacos, and I would always hang out later that night to be part of the community aspect. And that's what I really enjoy for residencies. And I'll often go to residencies because of being at a home studio by myself, that I'll need that engagement every so often. So it was an important and great part of Amoka as well.
Thank you. Basically, we felt that today was as much to introduce you to sort of our most recent residents or current residents, but we wanted to open it up to you guys who are on the call to see if you had questions about the application process, or if you had questions about your residency plan. So we want to kind of open it up. So either A, if you want to raise your hand or put it in the chat, we'll read it out loud. So this is an opportunity to get some feedback on what you guys are thinking or concerns that you have, or that's it.
So Luke, hey Luke, how's it going? Luke, how's it going?
Everyone is monitoring.
Hey guys.
Hey, oh, go for it.
So I was just wondering, I guess I'm sort of interested possibly in the longer term residency, but also the shorter term, because I am based in Southern California. I live up in Big Bear, so only about an hour and a half from you guys. And I was curious, like, is there a time frame or a window of time when the short-term residency would be happening, or is that flexible?
So the short term, which is the new one, is something that we're thinking is 2 to 4 months. So there'll be more of those available in the next year than the 2 that are the 10 to 12 month residencies. Technically, you could apply for both, but you'd probably have to apply twice, because your residency plan for 2 to 4 months would probably look different than if you were here for 10 to 12 months, would be my suggestion. And again, we learned a lot from the first round of applications, that in fact, there was a crew of, regional artists that were interested in the residency, and it just, what we had didn't officially fit as well. So that sort of allowed us to think about adding this 3rd residency, and luckily Wingate agreed to fund it. But I would say that if you're local and you're interested in both, I think, we haven't discussed this, Nathan, but I think that it would make sense for you to apply twice.
And I think the start dates for the short-term resident probably more flexible than the year-long residency, the long-term.
So we could start as early as May 1st for a local residency.
Okay, cool. But there may be multiple short-term residencies
There
throughout.
definitely will. Absolutely. Yes.
Great.
Tiffany, you said, what kind of candidates are you looking for? Can you be a little more specific? Tiffany, do you want to unmute and maybe expand on your question a little bit? I can't see where Tiffany is.
She said no, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's just too broad of a question. You know, I can tell you that the decision-making is heavily tied in two directions. One, you know, is the work seem solid, that you've got a good basis of a portfolio, and two, what are you asking for to do with your residency? So there's not one answer to that question. So I hope that that helps out. Next question, more information about the program for local artists near MoCA, what's expected. The expectation would be the same, that we're still expecting that you would be here 20 hours a week, so everything else would be the same as far as the expectation for the residents that are, sort of living nearby. Does that answer your question for that?
Yeah, and just as a well, to touch back on Natalia's time, you were here for 4 months, so she's our living short-term residence.
And Natalia, you like never left the studio for 4 months.
Oh, I pretty much live there.
Yeah, way more than 20 hours a day.
And then some.
Laura Odell has her hand up.
Yes, Laura, and then I'll jump back to the questions.
Hi, you guys. Thank you for having this information session. I guess my question is about if I were to be awarded a residency, I think I would be interested in learning more about the soda kiln and glazes. And my current studio setup, I'm kind of limited with firing and glazes. So I think I'd like to really explore and experiment with those. And at the same time, I don't have a lot of knowledge in firing in and of itself, or, I mean, I have a little bit about glazing, and glazed calc and raw mats and stuff, but not a lot. So I'm wondering, would that research be kind of self-motivated for a resident, or are there texts to help out with questions, or how does that, what would that look like, I guess?
So a bit of both. I mean, doing your own personal research on the side of like what we're able to offer as far as what we know about that topic. Like we definitely have resources of other artists in the area. I think last year we had our last workshop was with Richard Burkett from San Diego, who's a soda fire artist. So, we have other people come through with different levels of knowledge on the topic. And we do firings once a month, once every other month. Really, it just depends on scheduling and stuff. Yeah. So we have some knowledge, but personal knowledge or research is also recommended. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Let me do some questions from the chat, and then Emma will do you next. So one of the questions was, are we considering any residencies that are a month long? And I think we decided that it takes too long just to get settled, that a month is really not enough even for the local folks. So we're sort of thinking that 2 months would be the minimum. Anybody else want to, Nathan, anything you want to add to that? I think we felt pretty strong
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. 2 months is pretty short. So yeah.
Okay. Emma, you want to jump in with your question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having this, and thanks to all the residents for sharing your experiences. It's really cool to hear about. I guess I was wondering, in terms of when y'all are looking at portfolio materials, do you feel like there's more of an emphasis on like seeing a lot of like technically competent ceramic work, or do you think it would be helpful as well to see work from other media if the proposal is something that's going to be sort of like meshing more things together?
I don't know that there's one answer for that. I can only encourage you to put forward what you think is, the best narrative for your practice. Is really, you should feel good about what you submit to us, right? Don't try to game the system, because like none of us officially know what that game is until we're, sort of looking at stuff, right? So I just encourage you to put forward what you think best represents you as an artist and where you are in your practice. It's not a non-answer, it's actually is. Nathan, anything you want to add to that? Or anybody else?
Yeah.
Natalia, or
It's
yeah.
also just kind of like what to look at, like expecting from like your residency here. So something that would reflect kind of where you're coming from when you're here. If that makes sense.
This is a great question. Somebody said they came in late, Lisa, and can you reiterate what the living situation is like? And that's a great question. So I'm going to hand that off to Natalia and Kirsten and who am I missing? And Colby. I'm looking at pictures. So can one of you respond?
Yeah, so the living situation, there's an apartment that I think maybe one of the residents will get that is about 2 blocks, a 5-minute walk to the studio. And I came from the East Coast, and I was only going to stay for 4 months, so I didn't want to drive all the way over there. So I just flew and didn't have a car, and I was able to do that because I was in the midst of the pandemic, so nothing was really open, and I lived in the studio and I didn't go anywhere. And sometimes, if I stayed late, I would just Uber home, and it was relatively cheap. So that was fine for me, and I didn't mind it. So some people would think that you do need a car. Some people would say that you don't. I didn't mind walking everywhere during the day, but it's really pretty large. But I come from the East Coast in New York, so to me, everything is large, but it was really a large studio with everything available for you, all the furniture and all the kitchen gadgets and everything. So, and there's plenty of things walking distance in the area, food, thrift stores. And, I would even walk like a mile or two, even though people over there thought that was a little crazy, but I did it and it was fine.
Kirsten, do you want to put your 2 cents in?
Yeah, sorry, I'll jump in here. So I guess Natalia walks everywhere. Also, if you come with a car, it makes it easier. But I have a bicycle. I brought a bicycle with me, and I found that super easy to get to the studio and back with my bicycle when my car had to go in the shop for like an extended period of time. Also, I mean, it's just really easy to get around here with Ubers, and then also Instacart, and you can basically get anything you want delivered. We are in LA. But the living situation is great. It's a beautiful apartment, gets lots of light. It's well stocked with everything you need. If you want to bring your own stuff, you don't really need to. Definitely not big things. But I mean, it's in a great location. It's a great spot, and it's super generous that a residency has accommodations, because that's really rare for a lot of long-term residency programs, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. And just to be clear, Kirsten and Talia both use the apartment that's donated to us through Dave Armstrong. And Colby, you're in the other accommodations category. You want to respond to that, your living situation?
Yeah, and I guess we wouldn't know if this apartment would carry through, but between Nathan and Beth, they were actually able to do the apartment hunting for me. So I have a 1-bedroom apartment that's less than a mile north of the studio. It's got everything except laundry, but it's utilities and good water pressure and a lovely landlady. Yeah, I'm trying to stay here as long as I can.
Oh yeah, and internet is provided. So what was really great is like I got there and I was able to make like the next day because my materials were in the studio. Nathan set it up so they can have clay and materials from Laguna, and the apartment was set up, had internet. I just walked to the studio the next day and was making right after I arrived to California. So it's kind of like you could just take off running when you get into this residency, which is pretty amazing because I'll usually get somewhere and you have to figure out where everything is, get your materials, get things for your house. But it was very kind. And, Beth had a fruit basket for me ready to go and some nice little things. So very, very kind and generous people at this residency.
Thank you. That is something that you've each touched on, that if you're coming from away, you've all mentioned that there's kind of a learning curve to Laguna clays or any clays that you might not have if you're from the East or elsewhere. So there's a little bit of a learning curve I've heard from each of you on that topic. If anybody wants to, like Natalia, I know you were dealing with the terracotta differences.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a learning curve. And I feel like even 4 months now, I'm figuring things out. But I decided to go because I was coming from away to just do all commercial, and Laguna provided that. And you have the capabilities of making everything yourself. So if you have your set recipes and everything, maybe it's a little bit easier and you have what you're used to, but I didn't have the time to make things in that way. So, and a little bit, but with the tech there, Tim Decker, he works at Laguna, he could tell you exactly, oh, this has that, or this in it, that's a refractory material, and he just knew everything off the top of his head. So just having someone that knows the material that well, like offhand, was really helpful too, to kind of get over any of those little glitches.
Great, thank you.
And just to add one more thing, if you're really keen on your own materials, do like your own clay recipe or whatnot, Laguna can mix your own clay and have it commercially made and delivered to you.
We just need to make sure that that time is built in for their turnaround time. Next question was, what stage of career, what kind of background, what kind of work, etc., makes somebody competitive? I think your residency plan carries a lot of weight of like, what are you trying to do while you're here? And there's not one answer to that. I can tell you that at least in round one, those that were like, we just want to come and use all your kilns, didn't feel competitive to us. Like, yes, it's nice. And yes, we have a full range of kilns, but that didn't feel like a reason for being for us, is like the one thing that stands out for me. Nathan, I don't know if you want to add. And there were other people that were involved in the jury process, but Nathan and I sort of spent a lot of time sort of talking about what felt right. Nathan, do you want to add anything to that?
No, totally agree. It's mostly about like the project proposal, like the concept of the work, and able to just do what you're already doing, but doing it here, our facilities. Yeah, we had multiple long conversations about what to.
Was it enough?
Yeah,
because we're not so much for the new local one, but for the 10 to 12 month one, Natalia was an exception because we had a last minute opening, and that's all Natalia could come for was 4 months. But mostly when we're reading the residency proposals, we're like, you're going to be here for a year with us, so we're really making a commitment to each other. If you're, accepted into the program. So that's, why we spend some time really thinking about, well, how is this going to impact you, as well as what do you add to our community? As far as background, resume, we don't really care where you went to school or if you went to school. It's more, is the work seem solid, and do you have a good plan? I just can't say that enough. Any other questions, comments on that? Okay. Next question. I'm wondering about how much detail we should put into the residency plan. Do you prefer that applicants really try to plan out everything, or is there room for research-based? We just want to know where you're headed. The fact that you may not have all the steps figured out, I think is fine. If you knew everything that was going to happen, then you might not need to do it. So, and I think you heard that from the residents, that they came with a good ballpark plan. But it, you know, we would hope that there'll be turns and twists along the way. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fun. Colby or Kirsten or Natalia, you want to add to that in any way?
Yeah, I'd say, you know, I had a plan. I really wanted to visit the collection, and that was important. And I was going to make a body based off of that. And it's really hard to research and make work at the same time. So I did do the research. I didn't make the work. I'm hoping to make the work soon. But, you know, the work really shifted based off of another collection that I saw because of being at Amoka, going through the Maw collection. So my work completely shifted, and it became about this pre-Columbian. It could change just based off of what you're around. So, and I think that that was completely welcomed and encouraged.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to add to that? Okay. Can you talk about the teaching opportunities? Nathan, you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah. So, you know, we took about 2 years off of offering any semblance of classes or workshops here, but we are happy to announce back to teaching classes. Coming in like 2 weeks it starts, and then we do little one-off intro classes. So Colby's teaching one of these free wheel throwing classes. There's, you know, we're working on the calendar year for shorter weekend-long, like intensive workshops or topic-based workshops. So there's, and then in the past, previous residents that aren't on the call have taught soda firing workshops. Yeah, there's plenty of little workshop opportunities. And there's, depending on what partnerships we make with other studios in the community, there might be some crossover opportunities to start new partnerships elsewhere. So.
And sometimes it's just as little as, you know, you could potentially go to another program and do an artist talk. I mean, so it's hard to really get into the university system because usually they're too far ahead of whatever your residency is in planning. But there's enough studios in the area that usually you can get a little bit of teaching post-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
How large is the work you can create kiln-wise? How many firings can be scheduled?
How large is the work you can create? I'll tackle
please.
That one's how large is the work you can create? Our largest gas kiln we have currently is a 40 cubic foot gas kiln. It's got a car kiln, so it's 41 inches tall. So I know Natalie was here building real big, and Kirsten's starting to build real big as well. So also, yeah, tall, and you know, things could change as time goes on. There could be larger kilns. Who knows? Kiln-wise, how many can be scheduled? So we have a pretty competitive scheduling process with these, especially the gas kilns. We're one of few studios in the LA County area that offers firing services. So we service artists from all over the county, as well as some of our residents book these larger. So as long as we're scheduling things ahead of time, things are usually pretty flexible, and we can get what you need fired. Kiln-wise, how many firings can be scheduled? Be limitless. I don't know. That's we'll figure that out when somebody's here and
we have a ballpark number of what the firing stipend is. So far, no one's exceeded it, but if somebody came in and was working large, we might have to say, okay, we'll cover the first X number of firings if you're putting one large piece in at a time. So that hasn't happened, and that's sort of a dialogue once we know who's coming and what your needs are and how quickly you work and how much kiln space you're taking. So at some point you could max out and have to pay out of pocket, but we haven't seen that happen yet, to be honest. Can partners come along? I'm not sure if you're thinking partner as in a shared studio or just be with you while you're in Southern California. As far as the studio is concerned, I guess that you would have to apply as a sort of collaborative thing. As far as the housing, I think that the studio apartment is probably large enough for 2 people. I don't know that we have anything against that. You just have to both sign the lease with Dave, the lease that doesn't cost anything, with Dave, for
I
that
think-
apartment. Yeah, do you?
When it comes to like the weekly stipends and the firing service caps and all that, I think it would still be looked at as a single
one.
unit. Yeah. So
Agreed. Thanks for bringing that up. So I don't know if
And-
you're referring to partner in the studio or partner in life.
That was my question. Yep.
Okay. What is available as a long-term resident in the semi-private studio space? Oh, so look, you want to know like how much shelving, wheels, storage, etc. Nathan, you want to nail that one?
yeah. So as you can imagine, with COVID, having a communal studio space historically over the last decade has shifted quite a bit. So everything's in flux a little bit. So with this incoming round, I'm going to be remodeling some spaces so they're more set in stone side. We have a good handle on like shelving that's laying around. If you need a wheel, we'll have we can have a wheel there for you. Storage wise, I know some of our current residents and Natalia, past resident, could maybe speak on the storage around here, but once work gets fired and made, there's not a ton of additional storage space.
And just to sort of, I don't know, Natalia, if you were going to say something, but also if at the end of the residency, although we can assist potentially with crates or boxes and stuff, you are responsible for getting your work to wherever it's going next. Sort of just related to that a little bit.
I'd
Yeah,
say
go ahead.
the studios are rather large, so I just lived with everything, but I was there for 4 months, but I made a good amount of work. So we figured it out, and I just kind of had things around me living with me, and I don't know the exact square footage, but it's a good size. And then I had almost like a whole wall full of shelving that I didn't fill for smaller pieces. And while I was making my crates, I was able to, I don't know if this will always be available, but there was a space where I could line them all up because, I wouldn't have been able to have all of those in the studio space. So I was packing them and then got them out. So there is space. I don't think it would be for an extended amount of time, but for figuring things out and moving things along. And I've seen other people, having to move things to certain areas for, drying, or even if it's rather large. So there's always shifting and moving to accommodate. And what helped was some of the, the hydraulic lifts, I'd build on that. That was available to me, a lot of push carts and things like that. So there's ways to figure it out.
Thank you.
Sort of been able to almost commandeer like a shelving unit every time it's like a little bit more need for storage or anything. But the square footage is, it's well over 200 square feet, probably a bit bigger, and plenty of room and stuff.
Great, thank you. We mentioned that the soda kiln gets fired approximately once a month, and how often do the gas kilns get fired? And Nathan, each of the gas kilns gets fired weekly.
Yeah. Yes. So gas kilns get fired on unload on Monday. We spend the rest of the week laying, and we fire on we candle Thursday nights, fire on Fridays, with cool down over the week. So yeah, and that could be flexible if something comes up, but for the most part, we're doing them once a week. And once a week is Tim Decker, who isn't on the call, doesn't have to wake up super early on Saturday mornings, so he can be up late firing the kilns on Friday.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Is the wood shop open for residents to use? Unfortunately not. But we have two guys. It's really like their equipment and their studio. But as you know, people have mentioned, we can build almost anything for you, sometimes same day, and certainly with a pretty short turnaround. And they're on site 5 days a week.
Yeah, so detailed drawings of what you got.
Detail, you mean napkin drawings?
Okay, I haven't tried a napkin drawing, but
they also install our shows, and so they do a lot for the museum as a whole. Next question, or at least the last question I can see here, Natalia and others, could you tell us a bit more about some of the interesting parts of the collection? I know this may be hard to summarize.
Oh, I think there's such great gems in that collection that other museums don't have because of the things that you guys are willing to take. I'd say my favorite is the salt and pepper shaker collection, ceramic collection. That one's really great. And then I don't know what the title for this is, the Mexican ceramics, like from the different companies. There's a full-on collection of that I didn't even know, of half of the existence of this. So there's like all these different little niches of different collections from around the world and, mostly America, that is really great. And you have access to seeing all of that.
And Colby and Kirsten, we've just started hitting on the collection. We've only done one session so far, so more to come. Nick, you have your hand up.
Hi. Can you hear me? Good morning. My question is, you said 40 minutes on a good day from the city. Kirsten was mentioning Mona, and Neon was always exciting. I was wondering how much interaction with the kind of art scene in the city you have, either personally as the staff or institutionally, and how easy is it to get there and be a part of that as a person who doesn't know.
Yeah, Nathan, do you want to start that and we can all jump in?
Yeah, as far as like traveling from, actual to Pomona, I live in LA, so I commute daily, and traffic's it depends on what time of the day. So I come here in the morning and there's 33 minutes to get here, about 40 minutes to get home when there's traffic. So it's not terrible if you just time it right. We have pretty good with a lot of other institutions in LA. We've been to get little private openings at other galleries, friends with the other galleries in LA. So getting that one-on-one is important. I know Kirsten's working with the Neon Museum out there now, Beth Ann, who's connected them to. Yeah, and we have other people, other artists from LA come out and do studio visits with our artists in residence out here from time to time. So yeah.
Colby?
Yeah. Just lost my brain for a second. So the first thing that Nathan did was dropped us a Google map with 30 galleries that show ceramic work. So that's been kind of nice to have. And then we'll often just talk about openings and go out there and run into people. And there's also, this is the thing I was forgetting, some of the museum board trips are opened up sometimes. So I know we had gone out to Silver Lake Conservation and gotten to see a big LA conservationist. So those opportunities kind of come and go, and it's tough to put a finger on what they are, but they keep happening, and it's all good things.
And quite frankly, one of the reasons we wanted to add the local residency was we felt like, you know, having somebody who already knew the landscape as part of the residency pod would benefit everybody.
Yeah, so when I was there, I had Nicole, I forgot her last name, from AB Project. She came out and did a studio visit for me. And Beth does a really great job at, if she knows someone, she'll write that email and make the introduction for you. So I reached out to a few people and said, you know, I'm here, you know, you're welcome to visit my studio. And it's a great place to have something there for people to come out. And I think even just reaching out, most people are willing. I didn't have a car, so, you know, people would take me along to go to LA, but I also would take the bus every so often and meet up with friends or people in LA, and they would just pick me up. There's a bus stop, like a major bus stop right next to the museum that takes you straight to LA. I think it's like 45 minutes to an hour. It's not too bad.
Thank you. Next question, are you accepting overseas applicants this year? We are not, but if you are American and having potentially living overseas, which I know one of you was in that position on this call, that would be okay. We're just not in a position to work out all the extra details of overseas residencies at this point. We're like every year, we're kind of just reconsidering the rules and regs depending on, you know, what we learned this round. We're early enough in the process to be able to do that. So if you are an American citizen living abroad, that wouldn't disqualify you from the application process. Let's see. Are there any showing possibilities at the museum? Actually, that just came up this past weekend. We were talking with Colby about it. At the moment, because we don't know how each of you might use your residency and will you actually have work at the end of it that would be appropriate for an exhibition, plus we plan exhibitions so far in advance. That's a little complicated, but we are in the middle of a very major renovation of not quite a third of our building, and we're in a 51,000 square foot building. And we're thinking that there'll be some opportunities to do sort of like short-term installation of work by residents in the education space moving forward. So it wouldn't be in one of the main galleries, but we're thinking that there would be some exhibition light opportunities as we move forward. Any other questions? Nick, you still have your hand up, but I think it's just from you pressing it the first time. Just checking. Okay. If there are no more questions, I just also want to close out by saying that the museum and board of directors is really committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and artists from underrepresented backgrounds, and we're encouraging everybody to apply. So if there's no more questions, and you can feel free to write, Nathan will be the sort of portal for questions, and he can be reached. Which email address do you want to use, Nathan? The studio@amoca.org, or?
Yeah, that one's fine.
Okay. So studio@amoca.org is the best way to reach Nathan, and we'll try to be as responsive as possible. And the residency webpage is also in the chat. And again, there's no fee for applications this round, which we're excited to offer. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us, and good luck.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Special thanks to Natalia and Colby and Kirsten for joining us. Thanks.